The heavy exchanges of fire came despite an immediate Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire call from top EU diplomat Joseph Borrell while on a visit to Lebanon Sunday. The Israeli military said Iran-backed Hezbollah fired around 250 projectiles into Israel during the day, one of the war's highest daily figures. On September 24th, there were 350 launches from Lebanon, according to the military. That was the day after Israel escalated airstrikes against Hezbollah, helping to transform nearly a year of limited clashes, which were initiated by the Lebanese group in solidarity with its Palestinian ally Hamas, into a full-blown war. Some rockets fired on Sunday were intercepted by Israeli air defenses, but others caused damage to houses in central Israel, according to AFP images. In Lebanon, a day after a wave of Israeli strikes that the health ministry said killed 84 people, Israel again struck the capital's southern suburbs, a Hezbollah stronghold. Deadly strikes also hit the heart of Beirut over the past week, and on Sunday, Lebanon said in-person classes in the capital area would be suspended Monday for safety reasons. The conflict has killed at least 3,754 people in Lebanon since October 2023, according to the health ministry, most of them since September. On the Israeli side, authorities say at least 82 soldiers and 47 civilians have been killed. Earlier this week, US Special Envoy Amos Hochstein said in Lebanon that a truce deal was within our grasp, and then headed to Israel for talks with officials there. In the Lebanese capital, Borrell held talks with Parliamentary Speaker Nabi Berri, who has led mediation efforts on behalf of his ally, Hezbollah. We see only one possible way ahead, an immediate ceasefire, and the full implementation of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, Borrell said. Lebanon is on the brink of collapse, he warned. Under Resolution 1701, which ended the last Hezbollah-Israel war of 2006, Lebanese troops and UN peacekeepers should be the only armed forces present in the southern border area. The resolution also called for Israel to withdraw troops from Lebanon and reiterated earlier calls for disarmament of all armed groups in Lebanon. On Sunday, Hezbollah said it launched attacks using missiles and drones directed at the Ashdod naval base in southern Israel, one its deepest targets so far, as well as military sites in the central Tel Aviv area. The Israeli military did not comment on the specific claims, but it said earlier that air raid sirens had sounded in several areas, including in the Tel Aviv suburbs. Medical agencies reported that at least 11 people were wounded in Israel. The Palestine Red Crescent said 13 people were injured in the occupied West Bank by a falling interceptor missile. The wave of projectiles followed 4 Israeli strikes in central Beirut in the past week, including one that killed Hezbollah spokesman Mohammed Afif. Israeli strikes have also targeted the city's southern suburbs on a near-daily basis for the past 2 weeks, but were briefly halted during US envoy Hochstein's visit. On Sunday, the official national news agency NNA reported 2 waves of Israeli strikes on Beirut's southern suburbs, which were preceded by Israeli military warnings posted online. A military statement late Sunday said the Air Force had struck 12 Hezbollah command centers in South Beirut, including from intelligence, missile and weapons smuggling units. Ground battles raged in several areas of the border strip on Sunday, according to the NNA and Hezbollah, which said its fighters had destroyed 6 Israeli tanks and fired rockets at troops. In Gaza, the Civil Defense Agency said a drone strike had seriously wounded a hospital chief in an attack on the healthcare facility, while Israeli air raids killed 11 people across the territory. Since Hamas's October 7th attack last year that triggered the war, Israel's campaign in Gaza has killed at least 44,211 people, most of them civilians, according to data from the Hamas-run territory's health ministry, which the United Nations considers reliable. The Hamas attack resulted in the deaths of 1,206 people, mostly civilians, according to an AFP tally of Israeli official figures. Militants also seized 251 hostages, 97 of whom remain in Gaza, including 34 the military says are dead. Dozens were released during a one-week truce that began on November 24, 2023, a year ago Sunday. Speaking at a ceremony marking the anniversary, former hostage Gabriela Leimberg urged action to free others. For 53 days, the one thing that kept me going is that we, the people of Israel, the Jewish people, sanctify life. We don't leave anyone behind, she said. In a region marked by age-old rivalries and shifting alliances, one conflict continues to cast a long shadow over the Middle East, the Israel-Hezbollah conflict. This ongoing struggle is not only fought on the front lines, but also in the shadows, where the true complexities often remain hidden from public view. As tensions rise and skirmishes intensify, the world watches closely, often unaware of the unseen battles that shape the destiny of nations. The Israel-Hezbollah conflict is a nuanced and deeply entrenched issue, woven into the fabric of the broader Israeli-Palestinian struggle and the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. It encompasses historical grievances, military strategies, ideological battles, and the human cost of warfare. To fully grasp the current state of the Israel-Hezbollah conflict, we must first revisit its origins. The roots of this conflict can be traced back to the 1980s, during the Lebanese Civil War. This devastating conflict, which lasted from 1975 to 1990, saw various factions vying for power, often fueled by sectarian tensions. Amidst this chaos, Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982 with the stated aim of dismantling the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, which had established a stronghold in southern Lebanon. The invasion was a response to cross-border attacks and aimed to create a new political order in Lebanon, one that would favor Israel and diminish the influence of Arab nationalism and Palestinian militancy.
From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free!
However, the Israeli invasion led to widespread violence, suffering, and the displacement of civilians, creating a vacuum that would ultimately give rise to Hezbollah. Hezbollah, a militant group formed in 1982 with Iranian support, emerged as a response to the Israeli occupation. The group initially consisted of various Lebanese Shia factions who sought to resist the Israeli presence and protect Lebanese sovereignty. With support from Iran, both financial and military, Hezbollah rapidly grew in strength, becoming a formidable force in Lebanese politics and society. The group's ideology was rooted in Shia Islam, promoting resistance against perceived oppressors, particularly Israel and Western influences in the region. Fast forward to the year 2000, when Israel unilaterally withdrew its forces from southern Lebanon after 18 years of occupation. This withdrawal marked a significant victory for Hezbollah, who had successfully framed the conflict as a liberation struggle. However, the conflict did not end with this withdrawal. Instead, it evolved into a bitter rivalry marked by periodic flare-ups and skirmishes along the Lebanese-Israeli border. Tensions simmered over the disputed Shebar Farms area, a territory claimed by both Lebanon and Syria, but occupied by Israel. The issue of prisoners held by both sides also became a significant point of contention, fueling ongoing hostility. The animosity between Hezbollah and Israel intensified as Hezbollah gained legitimacy and support within Lebanon as a resistance movement. The group positioned itself as the defender of Lebanese sovereignty against perceived Israeli aggression, utilizing its military capabilities to launch rocket attacks on northern Israel. This cycle of violence and retaliation set the stage for future confrontations. The turning point came in July 2006, when Hezbollah launched a cross-border raid, capturing 2 Israeli soldiers. This act provoked a fierce Israeli response, leading to a 34-day war that caused widespread destruction in Lebanon and significant casualties on both sides. The conflict saw heavy aerial bombardments by the Israeli Air Force and ground incursions into southern Lebanon. Civilian infrastructure was heavily targeted, including homes, bridges, and roads, resulting in a humanitarian crisis that displaced hundreds of thousands of people. The war resulted in the deaths of over 1,000 Lebanese civilians and approximately 160 Israeli soldiers, alongside the displacement of nearly 1 million people in Lebanon. The international community was quick to respond, with the United Nations passing Resolution 1701 to call for a ceasefire and the establishment of a peacekeeping force in southern Lebanon. However, the war did not resolve the underlying issues fueling the conflict, and the ceasefire was fragile at best. Since 2006, there have been numerous skirmishes and tensions along the Lebanon-Israel border, with both parties preparing for potential future confrontations. The situation has become increasingly volatile, with periodic flare-ups leading to exchanges of fire, airstrikes, and rocket attacks. As of October 2024, the Israel-Hezbollah conflict remains a pressing issue, with ongoing military exchanges and political maneuvering. Just last month, on September 20th, 2024, the Israeli Defense Forces reported multiple incursions from Hezbollah militants along the northern border. Israeli airstrikes targeted suspected Hezbollah positions, further escalating tensions. Hezbollah vowed to retaliate, claiming that Israel was attempting to provoke a conflict. This dangerous cycle of provocation and retaliation creates an unpredictable environment, raising concerns about a full-scale war. In a surprising turn, Israel recently intercepted a series of drones launched by Hezbollah, showcasing their advancements in drone warfare capabilities. This technology has enabled Hezbollah to conduct surveillance and reconnaissance missions, heightening the stakes in the conflict. The Israeli military has emphasized that any drone incursion will be met with immediate retaliation, further escalating the situation. This shift in tactics illustrates the changing nature of modern warfare, where aerial capabilities play a critical role in conflict dynamics. Moreover, on October 15th, 2024,
Antony Blinken, right now he joins us live in the studio.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken emphasized the importance of maintaining stability in the region, calling for both Israel and Hezbollah to refrain from actions that could lead to a larger confrontation. He reiterated the U.S. commitment to Israel's security while also recognizing the humanitarian plight faced by civilians in Lebanon. The role of external actors like the United States and Iran cannot be underestimated, as they significantly influence the strategies and decisions of both Hezbollah and Israel. While military engagements grab headlines, the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Lebanon cannot be ignored. The economic collapse, exacerbated by the conflict, has left many Lebanese citizens struggling to meet basic needs. Reports indicate that over 80% of the Lebanese population now lives below the poverty line, leading to rising discontent against the government and increased support for Hezbollah's social programs. Hezbollah has positioned itself as a provider of essential services, filling the gaps left by the state. Their extensive social welfare programs, including healthcare and education, have garnered them significant support among the impoverished population. This dynamic complicates the narrative surrounding Hezbollah, blurring the lines between resistance and governance. In the shadow of this ongoing conflict, the human cost is often overshadowed by political rhetoric and military strategy. Families living in the shadow of conflict endure unimaginable hardships. Reports indicate that over 1 million people in southern Lebanon were displaced due to ongoing skirmishes and airstrikes in late 2023 and early 2024. Many suffer from trauma, loss, and uncertainty about their future. The stories of families torn apart by the violence serve as a somber reminder of the true cost of this enduring conflict. The psychological impact on children growing up in conflict zones is particularly alarming, as they face a future marked by fear and instability. Hezbollah's tactics also include the use of human shields, a strategy that complicates military engagements and raises ethical questions about the conduct of war. By embedding themselves within civilian populations, Hezbollah aims to deter Israeli attacks while also creating a narrative of victimization when civilian casualties occur. This tactic has led to tragic outcomes, as Israeli airstrikes often result in high civilian casualties, drawing international condemnation and complicating Israel's military operations. The situation is further exacerbated by the lack of accurate information and the fog of war, making it challenging to assess the realities on the ground. As we delve deeper into the unseen battles being fought in this conflict, we uncover several crucial dimensions. Intelligence warfare plays a vital role, with both sides engaging in a fierce battle for intelligence supremacy. Israel's Mossad and Hezbollah's intelligence unit work tirelessly to outmaneuver each other, with cyber operations becoming increasingly common. Reports suggest that cyber attacks targeting communication systems and infrastructure have significantly affected military operations on both sides. This invisible front is critical in shaping strategies and responses, often determining the outcome of military engagements. The media landscape also plays a crucial role in shaping perceptions of the conflict. The battlefield extends into the media, where each side seeks to control the narrative. Social media campaigns, disinformation, and propaganda shape public perception and international opinion. For instance, both Hezbollah and Israeli officials frequently use media channels to sway support and justify their actions. The use of real-time video and graphic content has intensified the propaganda war, complicating the narrative for global audiences. Understanding the information war is essential in comprehending the motivations and actions of both parties involved. Furthermore, the geopolitical landscape surrounding the Israel-Hezbollah conflict is continually evolving. The normalization of relations between Israel and several Arab nations, including the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, has altered the regional dynamics. This shift poses challenges for Hezbollah as it seeks to position itself as the legitimate voice of resistance against Israel. As regional alliances shift, Hezbollah's influence may be tested, leading to potential changes in its strategies and objectives. Additionally, the role of external actors cannot be overlooked. Iran's support for Hezbollah remains a critical factor in the conflict. Tehran provides substantial military aid, training, and funding to Hezbollah, bolstering its capabilities and enabling it to challenge Israel more effectively. This support has allowed Hezbollah to develop a sophisticated military infrastructure, including rocket arsenals that can reach deep into Israeli territory. The Iranian influence extends beyond military support as it seeks to establish a broader axis of resistance against perceived Western hegemony in the region. Conversely, the United States' backing of Israel significantly shapes the conflict. US military aid and political support have enabled Israel to maintain its military superiority in the region. The recent US arms deals with Israel, including advanced missile defense systems, highlight the deep-rooted strategic partnership between the two nations. However, US involvement also faces criticism, particularly regarding its perceived bias toward Israel and the humanitarian consequences of the ongoing conflict. The international community is increasingly calling for a more balanced approach, urging all parties to prioritize dialogue and diplomatic solutions. Amidst this complex tapestry of conflict, the path to peace remains elusive. Multiple attempts at peace negotiations have failed to yield lasting solutions, with both sides entrenched in their positions. The Oslo Accords, the Camp David Summit, and various UN resolutions have all struggled to bridge the deep-rooted divides. The lack of trust, compounded by historical grievances, presents significant obstacles to reconciliation. While there are voices advocating for peace, the prevailing sentiment among many remains one of skepticism, as both sides grapple with deep-seated fears and mistrust. As we conclude this exploration of the Israel-Hezbollah conflict, it becomes evident that the battles fought are not solely military. The unseen struggles for influence, control of narratives, and humanitarian considerations shape the very fabric of this ongoing conflict. It is a struggle marked by profound complexities, where the lines between good and evil are often blurred, and the human cost is often overshadowed by political machinations. Understanding the Israel-Hezbollah conflict requires a nuanced perspective that recognizes the myriad factors at play. The historical grievances, military dynamics, and the human toll all contribute to an intricate narrative that defies simplistic explanations. As we move forward, the importance of dialogue, understanding, and empathy cannot be overstated. While the road to peace is fraught with challenges, it is only through concerted efforts to address the root causes of the conflict that a lasting resolution can be achieved. In the coming months and years, the world will undoubtedly continue to watch the Israel-Hezbollah conflict closely. As tensions rise and the potential for escalation looms, it is imperative to remember the human stories behind the headlines. The civilian populations caught in the crossfire deserve our attention and empathy. As we bear witness to the ongoing struggles of those affected by this conflict, let us strive for a future where understanding and reconciliation can prevail over violence and division. Israel says it has launched a ground invasion in southern Lebanon against the armed group Hezbollah, marking another significant escalation of their long-running conflict that has heightened fears of a regional war. The Israeli military said troops were carrying out limited raids in villages near the border as aircraft continued to conduct intense airstrikes throughout Lebanon. It follows weeks of heavy blows by Israel against the Iran-backed Shia Islamist military and political organization, including the killing of its leader Hassan Nasrallah. Israel has gone on the offensive after almost a year of cross-border hostilities sparked by the war in Gaza, saying it wants to ensure the safe return of residents of border areas who have been displaced by Hezbollah attacks. Although Hezbollah has been weakened, it remains defiant. The group is continuing to fire barrages of rockets into northern Israel and has said it is ready for the next battle. BBC Middle East correspondent Hugo Bachega in Beirut says Lebanon woke up to the news that Israel had launched a ground operation in the south, something that felt almost inevitable in the last few days. The fear is that this could be the beginning of a wider campaign against Hezbollah, which fought a month-long war with Israel in 2006. In a brief statement put out early on Tuesday, the Israeli military announced that troops backed by aircraft and artillery had begun limited, localized and targeted raids against Hezbollah terror targets in border villages, saying they posed an immediate threat to northern Israeli communities. According to BBC Middle East correspondent Lucy Williamson in northern Israel, helicopters and jets flew low across this border overnight, to the regular crump of artillery and occasional loud explosions. And by the morning, fields a few miles from the border that had been full of dozens of tanks were emptying. The military did not say how many troops were involved or how far it was preparing to push into Lebanese territory. However, a senior security official told the BBC that this was not numbers of a large ground invasion, and that the troops had so far only gone as far as very close walking distance. But sending ground troops even a short distance into Lebanon carries significant risks. Hezbollah, which is well armed with anti-tank missiles and mines, has been preparing to meet Israeli forces on that terrain for years. On Tuesday, Hezbollah spokesman Mohammed Afif denied that Israel troops had crossed into southern Lebanon and stated that there had been no direct ground clashes. But he added that the group was ready for a direct confrontation with the enemy forces that dare or attempt to enter Lebanese territory and to inflict the greatest losses on them. Hezbollah also fired more rockets and missiles into Israel, attacks that Mr. Afif said were only the beginning of its response to Israel's attacks. Sirens sounded several times in the border town of Metula, where Hezbollah said its fighters had targeted Israeli troops with artillery and rocket fire without mentioning any incursion. The group also claimed it had fired missiles towards 2 Israeli intelligence bases in the central Tel Aviv area. Paramedics said 2 people were injured on a highway near Kafr Qasim. Israel has inflicted huge damage on Hezbollah in recent weeks, killing more than a dozen top commanders and apparently destroying thousands of weapons in airstrikes. It was also blamed for the exploding pager and walkie-talkie attacks that left thousands of Hezbollah members maimed, blinded, or killed. However, BBC international editor Jeremy Bowen says the killing of Hassan Nasrallah in an airstrike on Beirut's southern suburbs on Friday is the biggest blow of all.
אנו רשמית על חיסולו של חסן נסראללה, ראש ארגון הטרור של חיזבאללה ב-30 השנים האחרונות. בתקיפה ממוקדת של חיל האוויר, אגף המודיעין ואגף המבצעים, אתמול בדאחיה שבביירות.
For more than 30 years, he was the beating heart of Hezbollah. With the help of Iranian funding, training and weapons, he turned it into a military force whose attacks led Israel to end a 22-year occupation of southern Lebanon in 2000 and which fought Israel to a standstill during a month-long war in 2006. For Israel, Nasrallah's killing is a huge victory.
Hezbollah has suffered a string of blows to its command structure over the last fortnight, culminating in the killing of its elusive leader Hassan Nasrallah on Friday. So how did the Israel Defense Forces manage to track him down?
In a defiant speech at the UN on Friday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu
I have a message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah. For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage.
Asserted that Israel was winning the war against enemies who wanted to destroy it. By then, he had authorized the strike that killed Nasrallah. Prime Minister Najib Mikati warned on Tuesday that Lebanon was facing one of the most dangerous phases of its history. He said about 1 million people, a fifth of the population, had fled their homes because of the devastating war that Israel is waging on Lebanon. The Lebanese Health Ministry said more than 1,200 people had also been killed, including dozens of children and women, over the past 2 weeks. Authorities are struggling to assist everyone, with shelters and hospitals under pressure. Israel says it is hitting Hezbollah sites, including weapon stores and ammunition dumps, and accused the group of using civilians as human shields. But BBC senior international correspondent Orla Guerin says that is disputed by residents of the central Bekaa Valley, a Hezbollah stronghold that has been bombed repeatedly in the past week. The medical director of the local Rayak hospital also told her that all of the casualties it had treated had been civilians. US President Joe Biden welcomed Hassan Nasrallah's killing. And after the Israeli incursion began, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin.
So we're urgently seeking a diplomatic agreement that restores lasting calm to Israel's northern border and enables civilians to return safely to their homes on both sides.
Released a statement saying he agreed with Israel on the necessity of dismantling Hezbollah attack infrastructure along the border.
And Hezbollah, under the guidance of Iran, bear full responsibility to the deterioration of the security situation.
However, Mr. Austin also reiterated that diplomatic resolution is required to ensure the safety of civilians on both sides of the border.
Funeral for Hezbollah. The group is hemorrhaging men. This war hasn't even begun.
BBC State Department correspondent Tom Bateman says the Israeli decision to escalate sharply the conflict with Hezbollah struck a potentially fatal blow to US President Joe Biden's entire strategy of the last 11 months to try to stop the war in Gaza engulfing the region. Biden has said he is boosting the US defensive posture in the Middle East, while the Pentagon has warned Iran-backed militias not to try to use this moment to attack US bases. Despite the earlier US attempts to rein in the Israeli leader and coax Hezbollah to a truce, Netanyahu has signaled strongly that he will act as he sees fit, whatever the pressure from Washington. Hezbollah still has thousands of fighters, many of them veterans of combat in neighboring Syria's civil war, as well as a substantial arsenal of missiles, many of them long-range, precision-guided missiles that could reach Tel Aviv and other cities. BBC security correspondent Frank Gardner says there will be pressure within its ranks to use those missiles before they get destroyed, but a mass attack on Israel that kills civilians could trigger a devastating response.
It's all falling over into the old city.
The assassination of Nasrallah was also a huge blow to Iran, hitting at the heart of the regional network of allied, heavily armed militias known as the Axis of Resistance that is key to its deterrent strategy against Israel. On Sunday, Israeli jets struck infrastructure in Yemen's Red Sea port city of Hodeidah in response to recent missile and drone attacks by the Iran-backed Houthi movement. Iran could ask the Houthis and other groups to step up their attacks on both Israel and US bases in the region. But whatever response it chooses, it will likely calibrate it to be just short of triggering a regional war that would draw in the US and which it could not win. The Israel-Hezbollah conflict is a complex and deeply entrenched struggle affecting millions. As global citizens, we must advocate for peace, understanding, and dialogue. Join us in raising awareness about the humanitarian crisis and pressing for diplomatic solutions that prioritize the safety and well-being of all individuals in the region. If you found this information valuable, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more insights on critical global issues.